Hi, I'm Noah Levine, very new to Databricks. This is actually my 7th week. I'm the new communications, media, and entertainment industry go-to-market lead. Super excited to be here. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm like echoing in my ears. We are going to have a really amazing 2 hours together. The zeitgeist that we're all hearing all the time is all about generative AI. And we're going to be talking about today what the promise of generative AI can bring to the table for all of us and all of the industry in whatever vertical we're in, as well as our organization. The thing about generative AI is that it's only as good as the data that you feed into it. And that is a big challenge, and it requires a new type of foundation to be able to store, organize, and extract all the value that you possibly can out of your data. And the good news is you're in the right place. That foundation is provided by Databricks. The Databricks Data Intelligence Platform is actually the same set of products and functionality that you're probably all intimately familiar with. And Databricks Data Intelligence Platform provides those capabilities to be that foundation. It's not only about generative AI, it's about the components that go into your data estate, how you manage identity, how you keep track of your customer interactions, and then the purchases and the transactions, your networks, the devices that you have. And when you think about the way that we all organize our information to be able to execute, generative AI really sits on top of it all. And it supports a virtually infinite number of use cases, ranging in a scale of complexity from super simple to relatively complex. And there's really 3 or 4 categories. You have your training wheels, where most organizations are. Then you move into eliminating inefficiencies, cost savings. A big, huge part of that is workflow automation. And then we move into streamlining business processes, which could be things ranging from you're generating content and you want to use a large language model to assist with the process of expediting the generation of that content, to complex fraud detection, prediction, compliance, et cetera. And then generative AI even provides the ability to generate new revenue, new lines of business. So over the next 2 hours, we have a really fantastic collection of people that are going to walk us through not only generative AI, but the building blocks that need to be in place to be able to support this grand new vision, this future. We're going to start off with risk versus innovation from Robin Sutara, who's our field chief data officer at Databricks. Then we're going to move into an executive panel with a number of illustrious, great companies that you'll meet all those people shortly. And then we're going to have 4 presentations. One from DraftKings, SciPlay, the Texas Rangers, and finally 7 West Media from Australia. So without further ado, I want to introduce Robin Sutara, our Field Chief Data Officer. Thank you. Here's the clicker.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noah. So as Noah shared, I am a field CDO with Databricks. I am one of 4 that cover the entire world. And so I have the distinct benefit and pleasure of getting to meet with lots of our most strategic customers to talk to them about, I know you'll all find this a surprise, about generative AI as of lately. Most of these conversations actually that I have are with the CEO and the board because they're all trying to figure out what is this hype around generative AI? What do we keep hearing about it? So I was hoping to kick off your session today to share a little bit with you on what are some of the questions that I'm receiving from the board? How are we thinking about it? How are we positioning it? And then hopefully you'll hear some great examples of some organizations that have done this and where they are on the journey. So I'm hopeful this will get you a little bit of context. So typically what you hear from the board are 3 questions. They sort of ask us, where's the market going? How do they think about Gen AI? Where are my competitors when it comes to generative AI? And where are we in comparison to our competitors, right? They all want to know who's doing something that I'm not, right? Who's further along than I am? And so we're really trying to think about looking at these questions. The problem is that's not really what they're asking. What they are asking is, we know we need to get on the generative AI bandwagon, but we need to manage the pace of innovation that generative AI represents and the risk that it represents to our organization. How do we make sure that we're protecting ourselves and our organization and our data and our IP and our trade secrets and all of those things, because all of that represents a potential risk domain area that organizations have not had to think about in the past. So the things that I talk to them are, okay, if we think about risk versus innovation, what are the factors that we need to consider? Do you have a culture of innovation within your organization? I should probably give a little bit of context. I've been with Databricks a little longer than Noah, 2 years. And prior to Databricks, I spent 23 years with Microsoft. And the last half of my career at Microsoft, I was Chief Data Officer of Microsoft UK. So all I focused on actually was, how do I propagate a culture of innovation leveraging data? It was all about the people, it was all about the process, it was all about change management. And so a lot of organizations are struggling now with generative AI because what does that mean if you're going to bring generative AI into the organization to innovate, to create new products and services for your customers, for your organization, drive optimization of operations? How do you create a culture that allows you to be agile in that approach? Do you have the right foundations in place? You'll hear a lot about the data foundations, the platform foundations that you need to be able to do that. And then how do you prepare for future risk? And we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about an innovation culture. This is really people and process. I think, who remembers the ChatGPT first became public? We saw Samsung, 2 poor little employees, put some trade secrets in there because they thought they were doing the right thing for the company. And then all of a sudden, they lost the intellectual property right to that trade secrets that they put in there. I happened to live in London at the time. Immediately, several European countries said, nobody touch ChatGPT in the organization, all right? Nobody can use it in the entire country. Does everybody remember this story? Yes? So really, the interesting part with that case is not that the employees were trying to do something negative for the company. They thought that they were innovating, but they didn't have the right boundaries in place on how can you use ChatGPT? It was interesting, when ChatGPT was first released, I got a call from my grandmother. Like, I'm hearing all about this great thing called ChatGPT. How do I use it? Interesting now is, guess what? If you're using ChatGPT and my grandmother's using ChatGPT, you both have the same competitive advantage, yes? But you have to think about, what are the secrets, what is the data, what is the insights that you have that nobody else has? That's what makes it valuable. And so how do you create the right agile capabilities across your organization that allow people to use generative AI and the technology to innovate, and they know what policies and procedures they have to follow without it being a complete stoppage of innovation? How about the Air Canada case? Does everybody recall this one? So essentially, a customer used a chatbot online to try to get a reimbursement for a bereavement flight. The chatbot hallucinated the policy based on the foundational data that existed and said, you can fly and we'll reimburse you later. Air Canada essentially said, no, we don't want to reimburse you later. You have to claim for reimbursement before that happens. And they essentially tried to say that the chatbot was sentient and that they shouldn't be held liable or culpable, right? So what kind of risk does that now represent? We're going to say, no, we want to innovate with AI, yet you have organizations saying we have no culpability for what the AI that we're providing to our customers provides. So lots of organizations now start to look at this and say, what customer-facing risk or mitigation of risk should we present as we think about these solutions that we're putting out across the ecosystem? And McKinsey essentially says that every organization who's thinking about innovation has got to capture generative AI. The problem is people are still trying to figure out what does that mean. And a lot of that comes down to how do you set up the right controls and policies and enablement of your people to know how they're using generative AI in a way that's within the boundaries that you want to provide for the organization. The other thing we talk about is a solid foundation. You're going to hear so much about this week that you're going to be just amazed, I'm sure. But the thing that you think about when you consider platform is that the pace of innovation in generative AI, I think, is unprecedented. How many of you watched the Hugging Face top 10 for the few weeks around March, April, May? I think that list changed on an hourly basis. I definitely couldn't keep up with it. We came out with DBRX within a week. There was already a new model, right, that was outperforming it. That pace of innovation is faster than anything we've seen in quite a while in the technology space, and I don't see that pace slowing down for most organizations. So if you think about that, how do you make sure that your platform is open? How do you make sure that you're not having to re-platform as the generative AI technology continues to evolve and get better and get faster? You want to make sure that across your organization, the platform is going to support the generative AI maturity that your organization is going on. You will start with prompt engineering. You will get it. Most of you are probably in RAG at this point, yes? Hands? Who's leveraging some RAG use cases in their org? Perfect. How many of you are doing fine tuning? Huh? And then how about pre-training? Nice. Super. So you can definitely see it's getting more complex. The more your organization is leveraging the technology, you don't want to have to recreate new platforms as they're leveraging generative AI. So how do you think about creating a foundational open platform that allows you to evolve with generative AI? And then the last part, the scary part, I think, is governance, right? So there's this little thing called the EU AI Act that has been enacted. Nobody knows quite how it will be enforced, but it's been passed. We have the executive order here in the US, which has also been signed but isn't actual federal legislation. In the US, you have the disadvantage that because there is no federal legislation, states are passing AI legislation, which means anywhere you do business in that state in the US, you have to make sure that you're complying with that AI legislation. The good part is most of the legislation is still very non-specific on what enforcement that means, right? But you do have to think about things like transparency, explainability, all of those things. So making sure that your foundation can support you as governance continues to evolve in AI is absolutely something that the boards of every company are starting to think about. So with that, I'm super excited to pass it on so that the team can start to share with you some very specific examples of how they are leveraging generative AI across their environment. But hopefully this was a good foundation so that you sort of know what are some of the biggest organizations across the world thinking about when it comes to generative AI. So thank you.
Yes. Hi. All right, we have a very exciting executive panel. Why don't we actually have you guys introduce yourselves one by one?
Sure, I'm Wayne Townsend. I'm the president of Epsilon Technology. Epsilon delivers marketing solutions for clients leveraging a vast amount of data and identity that we have across the US and Europe, and work with Databricks as part of our platform.
Ben-Meleh, I am the vice president of enterprise data and analytics for Adobe. So responsible for all of the data management, analytics, machine learning, Gen AI, anything related with data.
Mark Austin, I'm the VP of Data Science and Automation at AT&T, and past year doing almost all Gen AI type stuff. You may have heard about Ask AT&T that we'll talk about a little bit.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernie Graham. I work in data at SiriusXM, which is also Pandora and some other podcasting, type products. Prior to here, I come from Disney Streaming, which was MLB and BAMTech and those types of companies, and was a founding member of one of the data engineering teams at Disney, which brought Databricks to Disney, and then also here at SiriusXM.
Great. And since I didn't provide any background on why I'm here, I most recently worked at Warner Brothers Discovery, running data strategy for the US advertising team. Before that, 605, a television measurement company that was acquired by iSpot a few years ago. And I was at 21st Century Fox and even worked at Adobe and Google before that. So lots of commonality here. To kick things off, one of the largest areas we're seeing investment is aligned to all things personalization. CDPs are really focused on making that happen, and you're optimizing the MarTech stack and truly getting to real-time personalization as an ultimate goal for every segment of your business. In many cases, it's a board-level initiative focused on enhancing these consumer experiences and maximizing those touch points. So open question, where are your organizations on their journey to better personalizing the audience experience or empowering other organizations to be able to do that?
I'll give it a go.
Great.
So this is pretty much the business Epsilon is in, is helping our clients, almost 1,000 of them, deliver people-based, personalized relationships across all channels. So channels that are owned media channels like websites and email, paid channels, open web, digital media, connected TV, and do it in a way that is leveraging one view of a consumer, one vision of what the brand wants to do with that consumer, and one voice so that the consumer is hearing one story across all those channels. And when you sort of hear that story, the challenge is, it is pretty hard. It requires a tremendous amount of data about consumers, data that we provide, data that the clients need to provide, all aligned in a way that connects identity so that we can help our clients find those consumers in those channels. And then being able to really measure the outcome and optimize it ends up being the most challenging part of it. So there's a lot of complexity to it. I think with Databricks, we're able to actually deliver that one view of a consumer in a way that we hadn't been able to in the past, that connects the CDP to the clean room, to the media planning platform, to the measurement platform, and really gives our clients a view of what's happening across their business and the levers to pull to really adjust their investment in different areas.
Great. Ben?
Oh, thank you. So for Adobe, we're in that business.
Really?
I have no idea. From a platform perspective, so many of you probably already using Adobe, our Adobe Experience Platform, doing that. So that is the end-to-end, the customer journey, the entire platform for personalization, and including Experience Platform, Adobe Journal, AJO, CJA, if you know the terms. But in the end, what it does is actually, I'll summarize into two categories. Many of you are doing the same. One is the directly to the consumers. So when consumers coming to either to a website or react to your campaign message, so from that event, be able to profile the consumer and based on the profilization, go all the way to the end of what campaign should be done, where and when and how. Second is, how is that consumer tying to a business? So that's the B2P side, which is this event may actually be an opportunity to actually targeting on a business campaign because that individual is representing a position of a company and that represents a different opportunities. So that what I said is two types, but each are critical. But the capabilities oftentimes are not combined or coexist together. So that's where is we're looking to solve and looking to bridge that gap as well.
Great. Mark.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a twist versus the previous 2 years. So personalization, we've been using it for years of, personalized data for where we should build the network, customer care. We pair the agents with the customers in a kind of a personalized way. We also, when a customer comes in, we have a personalized history, which we summarize with large language models to kind of catch them up with where they've been. And then we have the sales offers too, right? So we'll personalize sales based on eligibility. And then behind the scenes, what you don't see, we kind of saw it on the slide before, is fraud is highly personalized, right? Fraud prevention, right? And I think we've got, something like 10 million data points that we're scoring. Anytime something happens, they put something in a cart, they call into care, they go into a store. All of that's personalized, and we're scoring every single one of those things. And then one that's kind of similar is robocalling, kind of a very nuisance that we're all kind of not happy about. Very happy that we've gone after spoofing of calls where somebody's spoofing that it's somebody's number. We've cut that down 98% by getting personalized and look at some of the data there too. So a little bit different twist.
That's a big number.
Yeah, I appreciate getting it down to 98%.
Likewise.
Can you cut my spam message by?
Right. So let me first say, though, that we are also partners with Epsilon, with Adobe. But yeah, we run a product meant for the consumer, for right to the public. And clearly personalization is everything, right? Be it generative playlists, and I would actually say we were pretty early to this space at Pandora in particular with our music genome and, identifying tracks and then presenting them to our customers. So there definitely is the personalization aspect. That's nuts and bolts in the streaming space. I would also say that, your question was around how does that work in the sort of marketing effect? One thing that we found is, clearly with marketing channels, you want to have as much signal that you then go ahead and, build into your model that you then, make on take each customer as much of a unique journey as possible, nuts and bolts. The hard part, to make it continuous, to say, hey, we really like, we see that you like a certain artist. We see that you have an affinity towards, Taylor Swift, which is like half of our, our base. But, what does that mean for, marketing effect and things like that? But your question actually, though, really was generative AI? How does that play into it? I would say in our particular industry, it's a little bit different. We're not here to kind of, besides generating playlists, that are specific to our customers. We've been doing that for a minute. But, it was actually only the second column I saw on the slide, before that, generating metadata. Well, we have a gigantic catalog, hundreds of thousands of tracks, be it, audio tracks or audiobooks or things like that. But to use what we've now been doing in our research against that to do much more powerful understanding of our content can then take those things that we talked about in the beginning and then supercharge them.
I think that we just talked about scale and sort of speeds and feeds and how fast it's all going. And I think in the last 5 years, let's say, we've all gotten to a place where the volume of data we have and the pace we're trying to go ends up getting limited by certain bottlenecks in our overall ecosystem. And I think in a lot of ways, it's those bottlenecks. It's how do you create enough content to actually drive personalization for 50 million consumers? Or how do you create enough sort of decisions to when you're sort of looking at 5 billion bid requests a day, how do you create enough decisions to actually accomplish that? How do you make sure you're optimizing it? How do you actually understand whether it's good or bad on the back end from a measurement perspective? Those are all creating opportunities for generative AI now. So how do you craft enough versions of the content so that you can actually drive the right personalization? How do you actually automate some of the decisioning and measurement so that you can actually make decisions faster about where to invest differently? And that ends up being, at least from our perspective, where we're helping our clients invest differently going forward from a Gen AI standpoint.
So, question for Bernie and Mark. Is there such a thing as too much personalization?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Too much? Probably not. I mean, as long as you want to always measure it with a good business metric, right? So as long as your business metric's moving in the right thing and you're balancing with customer experience, then you're probably okay.
Well, there's clearly, you can give the wrong personalization, personalization that doesn't have sort of a positive feedback loop, and that would be, personalization gone amok. But, at the end of the day, the goals of all, this is the difference this is the data revolution that we're witnessing over the last 10 years, is to say that this customer, we all pay the same amount. We all get to sign up the same effectively. But then you feel that this is mine. You hear people say, my SXM, let me log on to my SXM, or let me go into any other product. And the more that one feels that they have that sense of ownership, that it really is them, that's important. And, you want people to almost feel a sense of loss if they lost their account and they lost their ability to say, hey, this thing's learned me. We've had this relationship now with this product. Those are important. To see if, I will say, I haven't seen that gone too far as long as things are going, where we're having a positive feedback.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So on the flip side, let's talk about privacy and a little bit about compliance. We are in a very interesting time in terms of new-ish expected privacy regulations in the United States and globally. The Apple ecosystem has essentially opted out of targeted advertising and tracking and measurement. Google's deprecating third-party cookies despite a temporary reprieve. And what I've seen in my journeys are the industry's really focusing on first-party data, and everyone building out their first-party data ecosystem and so forth. It's clear that we all need to address privacy, and it needs to be a central tenet of everyone's data strategy. We're seeing alternatives come up, such as data clean rooms as a potential solution. It also happens to be a highly requested capability that we're very aware of at Databricks, and you'll be hearing more about that over the course of Summit. So how have your organizations responded to the industry moving beyond cookies? The Apple app tracking framework and planning for privacy changes. I'll start with you, Bernie.
Privacy, as odd as it sounds, these are some of my favorite topics, to be quite honest with you.
Mine too.
Yeah. So look, I came over to SiriusXM about 2 years ago. And I came here, I was fortunate enough to come with a group of people that, that I'd worked with before at prior companies. And part of my charge, though, was to take an existing data organization, if you will, and, try to make change. SiriusXM's been around for 20 plus years. And, we have probably every sense of technology, every sense of, how to operate under the sun. And so the way I approached the sort of changing, privacy landscape was to have a very strong opinion on how to organize, my team, how to, what roles I should hire, and, how we should sort of separate things. And actually, I will say this is a little bit of a plug for a talk I'm doing on Thursday, all about organizational change management. So if anybody wants to hear more, but the idea though is that one of the first things I hired was a vice president of data governance. Now that was new to the company, and the feedback it's been a process. When recently some of the feedback I got from, say, other corners of the company, some data scientists and things like that, where now we leverage Unity Catalog, which has real strong governance, first class sort of concepts. Well, the feedback I've been getting from those who've been with the company is, hey Bernie, this is tough asking for access to data. I'm used to a high trust environment, and now I have to request access to data. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, it's not I don't trust you. It's what kind of trust are we building with our customers? What do our customers think about how we handle data? If there's a subject matter request, a customer comes in and says, hey, I need to be expunged from this. I don't, and our customers have that right. Well, we need to make sure we're following through on that. And so we take that very seriously, but I will say it's taken organizational change. And that's not easy. I would say we're on a journey. I'd say we've made humongous strides. I'm seeing some of my team out here kind of shaking their head, and we've made huge strides on that. So it is a change. Now, your question was directly about sort of like AT&T and things like that. I would say in my particular industry in SiriusXM, we do a lot of things around the automobile, and that's a whole different landscape. I would start there. I personally haven't seen a lot of negative feedback around like, hey, how are you tracking? That's not really, I feel like the industry's the customer sort of zeitgeist, they don't really blame point companies for how the mechanisms of things are tracked. It's more about, how do, the Googles and the Facebooks and the third-party aggregators of the world treat that. So I personally would say I think we don't get a lot of direct heat on that exact issue.
Well, you have a lot of authenticated experiences, if you will.
Of course, yeah, right. Like it's a relationship between us, them in their car, and those kind of things. So it's a little bit of a different thing. But, in general, though, I feel like it's an important concept, but it feels like it's I can't wait to hear how Adobe, replies to this. So, but I feel like, companies like that seem to have to deal with that more directly.
So, Ben, let's hand it over to you.
My name is being called. So Bernie said really essentially covered everything. But I want to ask the audience here is, how many of you feel that you get a very clear guidance from your privacy or legal team on how to protect privacy? Right. Raise your hand. We got one winner. So secondly, I'm not going to answer that question. Secondly, who actually watched the keynote from yesterday Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference? Or at least get to know the content of that. What do you get from there? I think there are 4 to 5 key points. But one of them is the on-device compute, which is you keep your data to your device. By the way, then you really want to call using LLM, then it's ChatGPT. Then by that time, the door opens. It's going to pop open to the cloud, to a different container. It is secure, but it is secure not in your hand. In whose hand? I'll later ask another question. I think it's a soaring question now. So just want to share this. The point is, privacy is critical. Security, privacy, compliance are critical. And it requires a collaborative effort for us actually pushing our partners on the legal side to be more clear and less of a lawyer-ish language that asking us to interpret, but more of a collaboration of share them is what's the nature of data and what's the nature of the data in terms of privacy and security, and where that really is, and where the weak point can happen. So allow our partners to actually work with us to make privacy as a matter of actually it's clear, instead of only one gentleman raised a hand. And I doubt that hand is probably for the purpose of your lawyers, please, sitting somewhere here, right? So that's really the point. Thank you.
Excellent. Wayne,
Can I take a shot at it?
please.
I'm going to take a slightly different view. I mean, our clients ask us every day how they still market in a personalized way and be effective from a marketing standpoint without wasting their marketing dollars, despite what Apple's done, what Google's going to do, what the privacy laws are. And in the end, our clients have to figure it out. They actually have to go out and figure out what they're going to do to market every day and make money for their company. And I think it's pretty critical from a recognition standpoint here that our clients all have invested in first-party data and collecting it and using it and understanding it. But in the end, there's a level of that's not enough, actually. You have to go ask for zero-party data, get permissions. You actually have to go out and leverage partners and understand how you're going to grow that view of a consumer so you don't just have one lens that you're looking at that consumer with. And for us as a data owner ourselves at Epsilon, we also provide this sort of big view of data that we've acquired and see and build on our own that helps our clients sort of understand what's happening. And yeah, some of it is totally anonymous or pseudonymized or aggregated, but we have to figure out ways to leverage all the options as quickly as we can and test it all out and drive it. And as things change, keep testing and keep evaluating and keep optimizing. You can't really give up in the face of all this change. You just can't. You have to keep going. So.
Hey, one other quick thing, outside of the customer and marketing type thing, you mentioned clean rooms.
Yes.
One thing we found is there's good uses for clean rooms inside your company too. Like if I want to build models about HR using HR data, they're not going to give me all the HR data, right? But I want to kind of understand the customer, the employee satisfaction, their willingness to stay, that type of stuff. Many times I want to build models off of that key data. And clean rooms allow us to do that. So we found really good use cases for clean rooms inside the company too.
You set up the next topic quite nicely, which isn't exclusively about data clean rooms, but it's really about data collaboration, data sharing, and data clean rooms. And so, Mark, how important is data sharing to your strategy and what you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, I would say it's huge. And
what types of data? Sorry.
So I'll give you the data warehouse, then I'll give you the data science view. I didn't realize how big it was until we started moving our on-prem data warehouse to the cloud. And we started to say, how much of this do I actually have to move? And it turns out this is a massive data warehouse we're moving, right? 75% of it was duplicated or key subsets of the stuff. I didn't have to move it at all, okay? So we only moved a quarter of it to the cloud, and we kind of had these key data products that kind of covered everything. So if there was data sharing, which there wasn't, everybody wanted their own copy, that's what happens, okay? So it's huge from that point of view. And it's not just the cost, it's the inefficiencies. Think about everything there. Who really has the single value of the truth? An executive asks a question, he gets 5 different answers, right? Horrible, right? And then the data quality, who's monitoring the data quality? Because they're all different things, they got different pipelines. It's a mess, right? So data sharing is huge. You want one copy, you want to kind of get it there. On the data science side, I'm a big advocate of the feature store. And the feature store is where you have your data scientists, they'll be working on these models for months, sometimes years, and they'll be putting stuff in. They got this really clever way. They take these cool averages to figure out what predicts fraud. And they put these things, they hide these things. And what I found before we had the feature store is I would go to meeting after meeting, and I'd find the same reinvention of the same wheel over and over again, right? And I love the feature store, and I love the words feature store. It's a store for storage, but it's more a store for shopping, okay? And I have story after story. And once we've had this feature store, I asked the data scientist, I said, have you gone shopping into the feature store? And sure enough, they'll be working on something for 2 years. They say, no, I've been looking at everything. Just humor me. Go to the store, do some shopping, and let's see what happens. Sure enough, the next day, in between meetings, they've improved their model by 20%. And they've been working on it for 2 years, right? So data sharing is huge, whether you're a data warehouse or data science. Big advocate in data sharing.
Awesome. So we only have 5 minutes left. And so I'm going to go to the zeitgeist topic, Gen AI, LLMs, et cetera. Open question. What are the considerations you're hearing from your organization and your broader ecosystem on the issues that they're grappling with when it comes to machine learning, AI, LLMs? We'll just do a round robin. And Wayne, do you want to start?
Sure. Epsilon's part of Publicis Group, which is a big agency holding company, 100,000 associates and thousands of clients worldwide. And the big focus area is how do we leverage our data so that our clients and our associates can be more effective with understanding consumer behavior, consumer strategies, marketing performance, and optimization. And it's very Gen AI centric in terms of the user interface for our platforms, in terms of the interpretation of results, in terms of so how we find the intelligence actually in the process, so we know what's helpful and what isn't, and then how we share it through the organization. So there's a bunch of things going on at Publicis that are leveraging Gen AI in ways that I think 2 years ago we wouldn't have thought about.
Awesome, Ben.
Yeah, I'll be very short. 2024 is the year of Gen AI, literally show me the money year. And if you read news or if any VCs here, you probably already noticed that it's a large proportion of the Gen AI startups already folding really closed, belly up. Also is, if we ask everyone here, or can raise their hand is, do you have a successful Gen AI enterprise application besides bot? Besides bot, do you have a successful or meaningful enterprise Gen AI application being used? I bet less than 5% of people can raise their hand. That would be very optimal. Another one is, if you, well data person, if you look at the consumptions of in Azure, in AWS, I don't use GCP, so I do not really know that. But if you look at the consumptions of related to Gen AI specific consumption, not on training by those companies, low, very low, extremely low. We can ask the question tomorrow when Jensen's here. He will tell you a different story because he's coming from a very different viewpoint. This is specific to the enterprise Gen AI applications. So the value of Gen AI and where the real app for Gen AI is still being discovered. But I do have a challenge to our friend here. Really is, Epsilon is one of the key data provider to most of us for personalization, for anything. Why are we still using API or using a push? Why not a small language model trained on all of the data that's related to the reference and provide that to all the companies we need to use that either as an open source or as a subscription? We can drop it and we use it. That's it. That's it.
All right. Thank
So
you.
I'll try to go fast as well. So about a year ago at AT&T, we opened it up and we said, what Gen AI use cases do you have? We opened it up to all the businesses. And in 3 weeks, we had 260 use cases into our front door. It's like, holy smokes. It's like, we can't handle these all. You guys have to go off and prioritize them, which they did. But the good thing is there was common patterns, right? And the common patterns was asking questions of documents, HR, finance, care, you name it. All the business units had that, right? Asking questions of data, right? Text to SQL type stuff. And then a combination of them. And what we hear the most is people, you can see the demand was there and it's much bigger than that now. People, the employees wanted a self-service way to do that. Not everybody wanted to code it, but they wanted self-service. So we've enabled that. So you can point, Ask Docs, we call it Ask Docs, question and answer. You point where your documents are and it uploads them all, vectorizes them, and you can ask questions of it, right? So huge thing is self-service on all those things is kind of what we hear from our employees.
Thanks, Mark. Bernie, you're the last voice on this panel.
The anchor. Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I got to say, though, feature storefront has a nice ring to it. I really like this idea of the feature storefront going shopping. But, I actually took your question more like, what are the concerns we have? Like, what are the negatives that we're worried about of these LLMs? I'll be honest with you. I think I have a ton to add other than the things that are so popular right now. What was said in the introduction. How do we not leak our data or our IP or whatever our secret sauce is into external entities? How do we, when we do a privacy concern that was used to train, how do we make sure that that's out of the equation? Those are important things. And then last but not least is how do we do effective measurement? How do we make sure that these things are performing well, doing what they need to be doing, the tasks we set out for them? And I think there's still a lot of work to do there, but I think we're well on our way to streamlining that.
Awesome. Bernie, Mark, Ben, Wayne, thank you so much for joining us on the stage today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Take the microphone. Okay. I'm super excited to announce Bradley Fay, Director of Data Science Engineering at DraftKings. Thank you, Bradley.
Thanks.
Clicker is right there.
Cool. Can everybody hear me? No, I'll just
Your thing's not on.
It's on.
Okay, good.
Is that better? I work. So. Here we go. Cool. So I'm Bradley Fay, and I'm fortunate to lead a team of really talented data scientists and machine learning engineers at DraftKings. Just to want to share a little bit about my journey of how I got to where I am today. So I actually started off life as a high school football coach and a high school teacher, which is like not the traditional way into data science, but I like sports. So I did that for a bit and learned a ton about how do you build good strategy, how do you set up teams to compete, and I've been able to translate those lessons into what we do in data science. So I was really interested in strategy in that aspect, the chess match of football. So that actually led me into graduate school where I did an MBA and I did my PhD in quantitative marketing strategy, which is incredibly nerdy, but it was also really fun. And then the fact that I disliked academia, the natural place was to go into industry where there's a really clear scoreboard of you either make money or you don't, which led me to data science and doing what I'm doing today. So I'm here today, there we go, to talk about using a metaphor of coaching football and how I use that to help my team adopt Databricks to build for scale. So to give you a little bit of a premise, if you guys aren't familiar with football, like one of the key things is strategy. So people, you can have 100 plays, you can have 60 plays, you can have 5 plays. Like really it's how do you have a strategy in place that allows you to respond to what your opponent's doing in an effort to score points or to not let them score points. Data science is kind of the same thing. And I realize it's like a loose linkage, but bear with me. So the reality is like the landscape of technology and the landscape of problems that we're solving is evolving incredibly fast. Like the fact that we just talked about Gen AI for an hour and a year and a half ago, no one even knew what it was. Just like we have to be able to respond to that. And so one of the things we've been trying to do at DraftKings is how do we set our team up to be able to respond to that and take advantage of those opportunities. So to give you a little bit of backstory, so when I started DraftKings 6 years ago, we were about 400 people. We were fully in startup mode. We were just trying to survive until the next round of funding. And since then, we've obviously gone public and we're in scaling mode. But when I started, the way data science worked, it was all of the classic things, right? Like I build a model on my local laptop. I figure out how to copy and paste files onto a server. I copy SQL code from repo to repo. Lots of duplication, lots of non-repeatability, lots of non-scalability, because you're really just trying to scrap together solutions that are going to help you survive until tomorrow. As we've grown up and we've become more mature as a business, we've really wanted to settle up and figure out how do we actually scale. So, as we chose Databricks, we really settled on there's like two things that we wanted to get out of a platform. So the first thing is we wanted to build a flexible strategic foundation. And so a lot of like football, and my experience here is like having a great playbook allows you to respond and be very, very flexible to the competition. We wanted a platform that gave us that same kind of configurability in the data science space, right? We didn't want to be locked into like, this is how you do it, this is how you have to do it, and you have a square peg and you have to fit it in every round hole. Databricks actually gives us that good opportunity because of the way you can compose the various features and the way we can onboard. The other side that we wanted to solve was how do we maximize our talent potential? So like I said, we started at 400, we're at 4,000 now. We have a ton of people across data science, business analytics, data engineering, sports intelligence, a ton of people who are interested in playing with data and trying to help our customers with better data-driven decisions. The problem is when you have fractured processes, you have an immature processes, like it's hard to empower everybody to do well. And so as we were thinking about what platform do we want to choose, how do we maximize the potential of our talent is a huge deal for us. So this kind of lands on like, metaphorically, we chose Databricks as our playbook. So Databricks gives us that strong, flexible foundation. It allows us to respond to our competition. It has incoming functionality. The beauty is like there's things that I don't even know about that are coming out, I'm sure this week, that we're gonna be able to take advantage of and allow us to respond to different opportunities in the marketplace. The other side of it is like it's also fairly easy to use once you get it set up and configured for the end user, right? We can set up our analysts to go through and play with Databricks notebooks, and we can set up our data scientists to go through and deploy jobs through a common CI/CD process. We've been able to get all of these things up and going. So that was why we chose Databricks. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit about how we got up and going, because it was not an easy process for us to really like get going. There was a lot of let's call it process scar tissue in our teams. We had built up our muscles in playing the game one way, and now we needed to teach the team to play the game in a different, more scalable way. So the first thing we did was, at the leadership level, we really talked about like, what is our strategy and what do we want to do with data science? And it really came down to us of like, we need a flexible playbook. We also need to maximize our talent mobility, but like the actual why, like what are the business outcomes we want to get? And it was, we want to get more models into production faster. Right? I don't want to have to hire an army of people to deploy 100 models in a month. I want to be able to have one person who has the capability to deploy 100 models in a month. It's a much more efficient process. We took a look at our current state. We saw all of the different issues, and we started systematically kind of identifying where are the biggest pain points and how do we get buy-in and go along the way. And then we just adopted a better playbook. It sounds very simple, right? It's not quite so simple. So the very first thing we did was we really wanted to get a quick win. So I can give you a story from when I was coaching. I, shockingly, was not a good athlete, but I actually understood football. And so getting credibility with people who are Division I athletes was a really hard thing to do. But I learned the very first thing you do is you help them get a quick win. You understand what their goals are, what their pain points are, and you teach them how to fix something that's wrong with them. We did the exact same thing with their data science team. They're skeptical about Databricks. I could go to talk to anybody, and Robin and Barney back there can say the same thing. Like, a lot of people know how to spin up a Jupyter notebook on their local machine. I can do that. Why would I need Databricks? Why would I need to do all this stuff? So we really tried to zoom in on the problem that was the biggest pain point for us, which was collaboration. Jupyter notebooks are not the easiest thing to get feedback on. They're incredibly impossible to diff and like do git commits and actual code review. And that was a pain point for us, to the point where our team just didn't go through the methodological review part of the data science SDLC. So we started by like, let's just get everybody into notebooks. Let's figure out how to get everybody collaborating and show them the power of just one piece of the ecosystem. And with inline commenting and the ability to share across different functions and do it in a governed way, thanks to how we had configured Unity Catalog, we actually got a ton of buy-in really quickly. I wish I could show you some of the Slack messages, but like the first couple of times we got people sharing comments and using notebooks to talk with stakeholders, it was a ton of positive feedback, and that just starts this reinforcing wheel. So we started with a quick win. The next thing we did was we tried to identify a few simple projects that we could take end to end, right? So just putting a model in a notebook isn't enough. You actually have to get it into production so it actually can make a difference to the business. So we started on the feature side. As was identified in the panel before, feature engineering is like the grossest thing ever, and a lot of times it's just copy paste SQL. You get 0 economies of scale, and it's a giant time sink. And when you get into it, you see things that should be the same but are not actually the same. You have no dependency graphs, you have no lineages. So we have started by attacking, like, let's get our feature store up and going, right? The bet there is get your feature store up. It's an easy process to get those data transformations into Databricks. We can schedule them with Databricks jobs. We can take advantage of CI/CD. We can start to build those. But it's a low risk thing for the data scientists, right? Because they don't have to give up their model workflow that they're very tied into. The benefit of it is we start to populate our feature store, and then we get to ask the question of okay, how do you build a model faster? Well, you start by, let me just use all the features that already exist. I don't need to go reinvent the wheel. Start with start at 1, don't start at 0. And that's helped us accelerate our model cycle time. So where are we now? We're really in the scaling up phase. And so scaling up for us is, how do we adopt Unity Catalog to make onboarding very seamless? So if somebody starts on the casino data science team or somebody starts on the sportsbook data science team, how do they immediately log into Databricks and have access to all the resources, assets, and infrastructure that they need to do their job and be successful at their job? The second piece is ML Flow, and I highlighted this one because we've actually made a pretty strong stance, and ML Flow for us is the center of everything. And we've decided that because it gives us this nice clean interface between the research and development side of data science and then the moving into production side of data science. And we really like that. While there are other ways to do it, being pretty strict about having that as our interface, that is a core tenet of our strategy here. We're continuing to build out our feature store. The getting started and getting initially populated is the biggest piece. We're getting to the point where you kind of get diminishing marginal returns on the features, and then you have to start going through the culling, right? How do you identify what features aren't used? How do you start sunsetting them? How do you cycle new ones in? How do you come up with a promotion process? How do you come up with a refreshment process? Things like that. And then we're really getting into batch inferences. So Robin actually just stepped away, but at DraftKings, we have a big data science team that's dedicated to building sports betting markets. They operate in a much different world in production than we do on the consumer data science side, where batch inferences for personalization and things like that are the primary use case or the primary deployment process for us, but we're starting there. Cool. Where are we going? Really, as the goal as we keep going, the goal is to get into this well-oiled machine, right? So if you think of the greatest football, the Patriots, as a Boston person, they were literally a well-oiled machine, right? It didn't matter who was there. The process was there. They had the foundations. You could cycle anybody in, and as long as Tom Brady's your quarterback, you have a chance to win. It's kind of been a nice part to have a cheat code. But for us, it's really how do we increase the number of trials? And a trial for us is a new model. It's a new experiment. It's a new idea, right? Scientific process and data science is a non-deterministic process. And so you never know what's going to be good or bad. And so it's a probabilities game. Just like sports betting, it's a probabilities game. We want to maximize the number of shots on goal to try and maximize that. We could do that by scaling out, right? Adding more people to take shots on goal, but that's not the most efficient way. So we're doing it by trying to scale up, right? How do we get more efficiency out of our people? And then the goal there is let's just maximize the potential of our talent. We have people who are really good at building feature engineering pipelines and really enjoy that. We have people who are really good at running models in production and really enjoy that. So how do we move into that specialization side and really kind of build on that? All right, so no good coach would be, in a good spot if they didn't review the game tape and kind of give you a, feedback on your performance. So I'll tell you how it's been so far. So for us, as I reflect back on what our adoption has been over the first year, things that I think have been great, the quick win. If you're trying to get it new and trying to get people, find that quick win. Don't do what somebody tells you they want you to do. Figure out what it is that you can help somebody with that makes them better immediately. And that was, for us, it built a ton of credibility with the team and drove a lot of adoption. On the flip side, no one ever talks about the bad side, but old habits die hard. There's old habits and old processes that we're trying to break people out of. People are still comfortable in their own situation, and you have to get them broken out of it. It takes time. It's never an overnight thing, but it helps. Then on the upside, the way to do that is metrics matter. You just start measuring things, and you have to identify what are the right things to measure. So my teams know they're in charge of two things. So one, they have to deploy an increased number of models, week over week, month over month, year over year, and they have to do it faster, right? They have to cut down that cycle time. And as long as they're doing those two things, like the outcomes and the wins are gonna come, but for me, that's what I want them focused on. And if they choose to do that in Databricks, which is where we think the play is, like great. If they figure out how to do it outside of Databricks, that's also phenomenal because we're gonna learn something new as a team, but I don't think that's gonna be possible. And then, again, with any good team, you're always trying to figure out where are the opportunities to improve. So for us, like we're really starting to look at liquid clustering to solve one of the problems that we have with like trying to get simultaneous writes into the feature store. So backfilling is right now a pain point for us. And so with the release of liquid clustering to GA is like a really exciting thing for us to try. Serverless, everybody's talking about serverless. If I don't have to manage infrastructure, I can be a data scientist and just do that stuff. And then solving the model serving. So, we talked about heard about some of the personalization use cases just recently, but really getting into like, how do you do inference on demand? How do you take in a consumer's behavior in real time and make decisions based on that behavior in order to provide them the best experience? All right, cool. My last 20 seconds. So this is a very, very quick like throughput of how we've decided to adopt Databricks, like the strategy we've adopted to get it embedded in our team and kind of the outcomes that we've been trying to drive with our team and where the benefits are. I think there's a lot more for us to do, but really appreciate your time, taking the time to listen.
Bradley, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We're going our next speaker, Shmuel from SciPlay. This is for you.
Hey, okay. Well, unfortunately, you can. So, hi, I'm Shmuel Ben-Meleh, and I'm super excited to be here with you today and share some of our story at SciPlay and in general, the story of our gaming industry. So we have a lot to cover, so I will jump right into it. So I'm Shmuel Ben-Meleh. I'm the SVP of Data and Analytics at SciPlay. I joined the company in 2016 as a product analyst and grew quickly in the chain. I'm a decade in the data and analytics field. Worked also as a lecturer in multiple academic institutes and developed multiple courses in the data, analytics, BI, and gaming fields. And before SciPlay, I had the opportunity to work very closely with some leading companies in the Israeli market in multiple industries such as e-commerce, airline, retail, and marketing, which was very, very interesting. Quickly about SciPlay. So SciPlay is a global leading free-to-play casual and social casino game developer. We make games for over 25 years now, and we have more than 800 employees around the world in 6 different studios. We have 11 active games in multiple genres, from board games, slot machines, bingo games, puzzle, and so on. And even after 25 years in this industry, in 2023, we had a record year where we smashed so many records in terms of revenue. We won trophies of the best social casino company. Some of our titles won the best performing title in different categories, and it was just amazing. And also we have already 10 consecutive record revenue in the market. So that's amazing, and we're fortunate to be in that situation thanks to our talent and our expertise. So quick glimpse into our games. As we said, we have multiple genres and fun games. Who here quickly, have a game installed over their phone? Quickly. Amazing. Who, between those who raised their hand, played one of our games, like in a game in the last, month or so? Amazing. Most of people raised their hand. So yeah, welcome. You are part of this, of our market. So let's get to know a bit the marketing, the mobile gaming landscape. The gaming landscape is a fascinating market. It's a market that spread over more than 5 decades now, starting with video games, console, arcade games, and this market is keep growing exponentially, as you can see. And if you look at the red area over there, this is the mobile gaming market. And this market is really the growing engine of this total industry, which we are a significant player in it. And in the mobile gaming, there are some categories such as the casual and social casino genres that we are a significant player in, but really our potential is the mobile gaming landscape, and that's where we are operating in different games that you are probably familiar with. So the mobile gaming is a very, as I said, fascinating industry. And there are some unique characteristics that make it so different than any other industry out there. This is a very competitive industry with a lot of new competitors and players coming into the market constantly. Those competitors are coming from all over the place, worldwide, different countries, different places, and every quarter as we look at the reports, we see new players coming into this market. And some of the biggest hits we have in the market today are just games that just released a few years from now. Also, it's a very innovative market that really pushes you to invent the wheel, think of new methods, new features, new things to push technology-wise, but also product-wise, and it's fascinating. Also, it's extremely dynamic market that things are changing just constantly in the ecosystem, but also internally with our players' flavor, with different product features, promotions coming in the game, and things are changing constantly. And talent, this market developed a very unique skill set and knowledge that other industries can just copy and paste into this industry, and it's very unique skill set that exists in the gaming landscape. So let's cover quickly 3 challenges that we're facing in our market. Those are not unique challenges only to our market, but each market is impacted differently from those challenges and need to pivot accordingly. So the first one is just the macro market economy shift. Up until a year and a half ago, the market for over a decade was focused on growth, top-line revenue, investing in new initiatives, even if they are not profitable. And in the last year and a half or so, as probably most of you know, the market changed the focus. Companies are expected to focus on bottom-line revenue, profitability, efficiency, and that obviously requires a lot of changes in how the companies are operating. The second one, which mentioned before, is privacy. At the end of 2020, Apple introduced us with iOS 14 and really changed the marketing landscape and changed the way marketing companies are able to track, monitor, measure performance of users, but also to target different users in an ad hoc way, and basically, bottom line, raise the cost of marketing. And companies no longer can just buy their growth and just advertise to new players and bring them to the game and grow that way. And the last one, obviously, AI, which we know already. This is the next revolution that we are already started, but AI, it's still not in everything and everywhere yet. It's just a matter of time. We will get there, but companies have to position themselves now for this for the time it will start if they want to survive in the market. Okay, so with all the changes and challenges we just listed, obviously games and companies can't operate the same way they operated up until a year and a half or 2 years ago. They need to change. And in this time, as I mentioned, we were growing, we took market share, we grew double-digit year over year, even though our market kind of stagnated. And the way we did it is thanks to adjustments we made and understanding that we can't just invest in marketing or just grow and invest in initiatives. We need to pivot, and our focus has to change to improve our user experience. We have to focus on our current users. We have to tailor the experience of our users, personalize their experience if we want to keep growing, not just in profit, but also top line, and give the best experience we can. And the way we did it is thanks to our data-driven approach, which really come to what I call the 4 Ws. Every time we come to make a decision, we are not just focusing on what's cool, what sounds, interesting, or what everyone else is doing. We really ask ourselves what our players want. What is their desires? What are their flavors? And then we ask ourselves the 4 questions. The first question we ask ourselves is why? Why do we have this discussion? Why do we think we have a problem? What is the gap we're facing? The second question we will ask ourselves is, what is the solution? How are we planning to bridge this gap? What is the right solution? What is the right feature, promotion, journey we need to introduce our players? The next question we will ask ourselves is who? Who is the right audience? Who is the right segment, micro segment that we need to surface this solution, treatment, and so on? And the last question we will ask ourselves is when. When is the right moment to introduce our players with this solution, with this journey, with this new experience, and basically improve and personalize their experience. Before Databricks, in our legacy systems, when I look at the why and the what, we did a pretty good job. We have creative people. We have a lot of, over 25 years, we have a lot of experience with our, what our players want. We understand the gaming landscape. We did pretty good there. However, when it came to the who and the when, we kind of struggled because we didn't have the technologies and the power to find and run those exploratory analyses, to run those models, to have a solid collaboration between different teams to find those segments, but also we didn't have the technology to allow us to introduce the players at the right moment we want with the right journey and experience. So basically, if I need to summarize it, we know where we want to get to, we know what's the destination, but we didn't have the vehicle to carry us there. Obviously, we could walk, but someone will pass us along the way, right? So what we want to do with this data-driven approach is basically we want to, once we understand what is the gap and what we want to solve for, we want to deliver the best experience to the right user at the right moment. And that's the key. Okay, so as we move to Databricks, we immediately solve many, many problems. And we focused on multiple KPIs that we were focused on and really wanted to change. And immediately, we were able to see an immense improvement. We were able to have data available 30x time faster. We were able to query our data 100x faster. We identify issues in production faster. We're able to fix them faster and basically improve the trust, data governance, and many other things, which was an incredible improvement, obviously. And basically, we were able to generate more insights faster, have more questions and answers, and move faster, basically. However, we are innovative company, and we have the passion to win. That's our motto, and we wanted to take it a step forward. And we wanted to, obviously, as I mentioned before, we wanted to see how we can even take it a step forward and improve our players' experience furthermore. So we will not just improve our players' experience, but we will also dominate the market. So in order to do that and focus on retention and improve our players' experience, we basically build a framework that allows us to digest data very quickly and also get an output very quickly in real time, so we can create segments. We can create segments, but also react and change our game in a fast way that will keep entertaining our players and keep them in our games and in our ecosystem. This solution and this framework is basically based on digesting a real-time data that is based on Spark and Spark streaming, and it's built in a modular way, layers over layers, that allows us to take the data, digest it in a quick way, and through ML flow to run the logics, the predictions, the segments, and create those clusters or microsegments and have a near-real-time output back to our games and basically adjust our games, the gameplay, and our user experience in the session. And it was an incredible change and improvement to our user base and their gameplay. So on this framework, we were able to build two solutions. One is a self-service segmentation. Basically, we allowed our internal customers, which are the game teams, the product managers, the monetization managers, and so on, to build independently different segments, micro-segments that are built on prediction models or actions and behavior, or just gameplay behavior in the game, and do it independently. That by itself saved more than 60% of the time of software engineering that needed to build those segments and those cohorts and audiences, and basically free their time to do more things in the game and develop better experience and features. On top of that, we allowed the game teams to get near real-time data and trigger different journeys in the game, so the player will keep being entertained and keep playing the game and enjoy their experience and their session. And the bonus part to all this framework is that this is a reusable framework that we can build more and more solutions on top of, and it's not just a ad hoc solution for a specific use case, which is a big win. So let's take a quick flow what our players can do today, what our internal customers can do today. Taking Jackpot Party, this is our biggest games, one of the biggest gross revenue games in the US. So if the game team today wants to create a new core, they realize they found a gap or found a core, they want to personalize their experience, today they can create their own segment in a matter of few hours or a few days, and bucket them together and create this audience independently. And then once those players behave in a certain way and achieve different milestones, they are able to trigger a new promotion and a new journey to expand and keep them entertained, and basically close the loop and make the player entertain and enjoy their experience and keep staying and entertaining in our ecosystem. So, as we mentioned, this is a reusable framework, and we have multiple exciting initiatives in the pipeline that we can build on top of. So the first three, enhanced segmentation, anomaly detection, and predictive models are things we can build immediately on top of this framework, which is an amazing win. Anomaly detection is basically we want to identify anomalies in the player's behavior, things that we are not expecting, and identify frictions in the player's flow and journeys and react on them quickly and bridge those gaps. Predictive models is pretty straightforward, and we have multiple use cases in the pipeline that we can just build on top of this framework. And the last and very exciting item is self-service analytics. That I heard that Databricks are entering this field as well, which is amazing. And basically, we want to empower everyone at SciPlay to be able to generate more insight independently and release the bottleneck from the analyst and kind of free their time to focus on more predictive models, visualization, exploratory analysis, and generate more insights into our games. And that was me. Thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Hello. Hi. Okay, we are moving on. The clicker is not working. To the Texas Rangers. They brought the whole team. We have Alexander, Michael, and Oliver. Welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to be very loud. Whoa. Clicker?
Clicker.
Clicker. Found it. Next. Whoa, look at that, it works. First off, hello. Thank you for being here and sticking around. I know that we're very close to happy hours and whatever else is happening after all this, so thank you for being here. Also crazy to hear from like DraftKings and everybody, we all have the same problems, so it's kind of really cool to be able to collaborate and talk to each other and kind of learn from each other and our best practices and things. So hopefully that's what we can share with you. You're gonna hear a lot of the same kind of ideas that you've heard today, but hopefully we can expand and put a little fun little baseball flair on it. Is my ring prominent enough yet in the lights? Hopefully it's cleansing. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to touch on data privacy, building a foundation. We're going to talk about AI and ML, how we use that in baseball. Then, of course, we got some Gen AI stuff that we're doing in the pipeline, so I'm excited to share that. Quick introductions here, then we'll get going. Yeah, my name's Alexander Booth, Assistant Director of R&D with the Texas Rangers. Been basically our big data architect for the last couple of years, and we do our years in seasons, so this is my 7th season with the club, and I'll turn it over to my coworkers.
I'm Michael Topol. I work in baseball analytics with the Rangers. It's my 9th year in baseball, but I just joined the Rangers last year, just in time for the World Series.
Hey everyone, I'm Oliver Dykstra. I'm a data engineer for the team. This is also my 2nd season. Second season in sports as well, overall.
And we didn't win a World Series before we hired these guys, and then right afterwards we did. So nothing that I did, hell, it's just all these guys over here. Anyway, things we're going to touch on today, we're going to touch on data privacy, we're going to touch on data engineering, we're going to touch on AI and ML and KPIs, and then we're going to touch on some Gen AI stuff, and maybe we got a World Series trophy we can show at the end here. We'll see how it all comes together. For those that don't know, we're a Major League Baseball club headquartered in Arlington, Texas, which is pretty close to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we have a beautiful new stadium. One of our senior directors is here today, and he helped kind of do the whole thing to build this new stadium, so I got to showcase it. $1.3 billion. It's worth it though. I grew up in Texas. Oh, I'm segueing, oh my God. I grew up in Texas, so back in the day, you'd have to go like to a game outside, 120 degrees, you're just sitting there roasting. So I love it. Air conditioned, 75 degrees, but we'll also talk about, this relates to ML, I promise. with the weather and things. But anyway, so just a quick foundation of kind of where we're at in baseball. What is data science in baseball? How are professional sports becoming data-driven enterprises? So a quick couple of slides here on the timeline. We've all probably heard of Moneyball. That was kind of the innovation or the public innovation of using data to make sports-related decisions. Billy Beane found that guys with a higher on-base percentage are more likely to score runs. They were not compensated appropriately in the market, so a little competitive advantage there. But after that, data kind of exploded. So we have ball tracking systems now, which came out in 2006. So it's tracking the spin rate, tracking the velocity, and then those only got better over the next decade. You're gonna see a product called StatCast. If you ever watched a baseball broadcast, you're gonna see brought to you by StatCast, basically after like all the big home runs and things. So it's a radar and video technology, I guess, that's not only tracking the ball, but is now tracking everything that happens on the field at a high frame rate. So a couple technology shifts there. TrackMan, who you may also hear in golf, Hawkeye, who also does tennis, and now the NBA too, so a lot of interesting things there. But with this high frame rate tracking, we're tracking the players at 30 frames per second for the entire game. We're tracking the pose. We're doing some computer vision partners that are tracking the skeletons of the pitcher and the batter at 300 frames per second. And some of the newer technologies now, we're tracking bat tracking. That was released publicly a couple of months ago, a month ago maybe. We've had it for a little bit longer, you know, being working for a club and all. But these are like really big, complicated data sources that we did not know if we were being able to transform, make leaderboards, make decisions off of. And that really was kind of the catalyst for investing in kind of the lakehouse and a cloud-based modern data architecture. So yeah, my last little slide here. Next time you go to a ballpark, look up. I promise you, you may or probably see a camera. There's at least 16 of them usually, maybe more. There's a big black box behind home plate. I promise it's even there at Oracle Stadium. So if you're going to the game tonight, at least look for one of these. So I'll pass this over to Oliver now to kind of touch on some of our data vendors.
Yeah, as we started getting these data sources and these new technologies, the providers just exploded. And so both vertically and horizontally, we've just been a total explosion of data sources. So it's not just MLB, right, the major leagues. We go down to the minors. We're collecting data at colleges now. You know, now we even have parents entering data collection in their little applications at Little League games and stuff like that. It's going everywhere. But it's also going international, you know, of course, and just tons of different sources all over the world. It's everywhere. And so, of course, the first thing that we had to do in order to address any of these issues was figure out the back end and our engineering. Our first step into the cloud, I love to show this slide, kind of just the pipeline and the lineage for one of our data products. You know, it was a big tangled mess. And the product that we were using left us really rigid. So everything was very time-based. We even had some stuff kind of scheduled on cron. So any misfires, you know, left us hanging, left our stakeholders hanging. And in the end, it was tough enough to explain how we reached the conclusions that we got to with these numbers, as well as, you know, maybe why their numbers weren't there when they wanted it.
I was gonna add in there, like this is we all probably had this, right? This is like your old Oracle SQL servers, like on-prem, right? And it worked fine when, at least for our case, the only data we were getting was like box scores, like how many home runs did the Adolis Garcia hit? Maybe 1 or 2. But anyway, like I said, with the high frame rate stuff, try loading in terabytes of high frame rate, like streaming data into the SQL server. It's not gonna play well. So
yeah, it's bad news. So we were happy to jump onto a unified data platform. A lot easier to collect data from all these different sources, from you know, new biomechanics, pitch data. We're getting weather data now every 5 minutes or something at all the different stadiums, as well as, you know, scouting, medical records, player information, everything like that, and being able to use it through new data-driven, event-driven orchestration systems through our medallion architecture, and distributing it to all of our different end users, whether it's for analysts and machine learning, off to our BI for our scouts, coaches, player development, everyone like that.
Yeah, we weren't the first to do this, and we're definitely not going to be the last, but it's worked really well for us, and we actually got this in place before kind of the World Series, so that was kind of what we think is a big win, right? Getting our data much more collaborative and much more transparent in its pipelines.
That's still me. And of course, one thing that we really love is open source software. So we're really happy with all of the different partnerships that Databricks does and explores. And these are a few of our favorites that we've been partnering up with.
What is it? Baseball is a team sport, right? That's kind of, I think, how we try to do that slide. Anyway, we'll pivot into some data governance stuff as well here. So data governance necessarily is the most sexy thing, but at least in baseball, we actually initially we didn't do anything, and then we quickly realized that couldn't necessarily. We had to adapt and create some kind of data governance system. So again, we actually have the same types of regulations that you all probably have too. Sensitive information, medical information. Even though people really try to know how bad really is Corey Seager's groin strain. I think that's public, right? Oh God. Anyway, things about some injuries and people really want to know whether it's for fantasy purposes or whether it's just to following their favorite teams. So trying to keep that medical information, though, proprietary, stored correctly. Same thing with addresses, PII. It's kind of crazy how many people are looking for, a Corey Seager's residential address to send him fan mail and stuff. So again, trying to keep a lot of that just private and make sure that the players have their own privacy as well that they deserve. Financials is another big one. Incentives. Contract information, contract details. We don't want that to get into the wrong hands either, whether it's both internally or externally. And then, of course, we actually have the amateur draft coming up next month. And with the amateur side, again, a lot of these players are under the age of 18 or that we're scouting. And how do you kind of keep that education securely stored? How do you keep all of their personal medicals that they have to submit as well securely stored and accessed? So we actually are, FERPA and HIPAA are a couple of the regulations that we have to abide by too. And so Databricks Unity Catalog allows us to kind of manage those permissions on the cloud effectively. Another one is more about data sharing. So this is a case study that I like to pull here. I don't know if y'all heard about this. So the New York Mets, they did their first dollar hot dog night in a long time on April 30th. So I kind of love this quote. It was there's a lot of news press about their dollar hot dog night. We've been doing dollar hot dog nights at the Rangers for decades. I'm what's going on here? Anyway, in front of the $1 Wiener Boys, this sideline reporter found out that they ordered 70,000 hot dogs. And while they were super impressed they sold 44,000, that may not necessarily be great inventory management, right? So at the Rangers and throughout at the Rangers and with other kind of sporting events too, we do take that business side, that fan engagement side. I'll try to make that a little bit more AI and data driven too. So with data sharing, right, we're able to collaborate kind of with that business side and that concession side. You'll notice that if we knew things like who is starting the game tonight, or how many runs are we going to score, or is it going to thunderstorm or tornado in Texas all the time now apparently. Less people show up, less hot dogs. So maybe we could try and collaborate again and create kind of better AI-driven concessions. So yeah, using governance and shared data, we can collaborate between business, baseball, and concessions. So a quick slide here about how we're doing that in multiple Databricks workspaces, utilizing everything in the Meta Store with the Unity Catalog. I think you've all heard that. But it's really great to kind of see that in action here, at least with our domain.
Yeah, I think we're running kind of low on time.
No,
but just to, from the perspective as an analyst, a lot of our stakeholders and customers, as you might say, are non-technical people in the front office. This shows up in the form of talent acquisition. We have the draft coming up, like they said. It could be free agent signings, trades with other teams. A lot of it these days is in player performance, player development, utilizing all of the biomechanics, the swing data, everything that we have. It's very integrated throughout the org now with the coaches. And then also in in-game strategy, we have, it shows up anywhere, whether it's matchups for pitchers, lineup optimizations, positioning. These are all areas that analytics touch now. And then one example, I guess, is hitting. The launch angle revolution is basically just an example of how an emphasis on analytics is represented in hitting and emphasis on launch angle. This goes back to the data source that's almost 20 years old now of ball tracking data. We're talking about being able to build models around expected outcomes of hits given the ball tracking data. That's exit velocity, that's launch angle. Over the years, we've been able to incorporate new models that incorporate this new data, such as weather. So now we can say how much did the weather impact these balls. We can use the biomechanic data, we can use the bat tracking data, we can see, so now it's just not launch angle, it can be attack angle, it can be stride length, it can be all these different things that we're building. And as we build models, we can then give this to the coaches, we can give this to the players, to the decision makers. It shows up in lots of areas. And then this is just, another example of where it shows up on the opposite side, as we have in-game strategy for positioning. We've had the player tracking data, so we know where players are every play. We can incorporate that into our model in combination with the ball tracking. We know who the pitcher is going to be, we know who the hitter is going to be, and then we can, every team is going to have their own version of these models or algorithms. Basically, you're just trying to optimize where can we put the players in the best place to make that out. This is an aspect of the game that got so good in some ways that MLB banned it in some sense. They didn't completely ban shifting, but they put a lot of restrictions on it starting last year because it was something that it works, and it worked too well. They thought that it was, so our job is to optimize within the game, their job is to optimize the game. So we still have the models, we just have to work in the new constraints.
These charts are from this year, though, so you can still see kind of the impact that defensive shifts are having, especially with the infield on left and right-handed hitters.
Yeah, and then finally, just this is, once you talk about all these various machine learning models that we have that help us better value and evaluate the game, one thing that it does is it kind of just like strips out a lot of the randomness, gives us, and then allows us to fold them together into projections. And that's one of the main goals as an analyst, is to kind of be able to get all the information we have and generate a projection that we can give. And then we can say, hey, coaching staff, this is what's valuable. This is what actually matters for projecting future. They can work on that. Our decision makers can do that for all the various transactions we talked about. This is just a public version of it, but every team will have an internal version as well, where we're just rolling all this data, all these models, finally into one value number, basically, of what we're trying to project, and give that for everyone.
Now, what's crazy, this is all based on machine learning. These are all machine learning-based KPIs that we're using to evaluate players, to enhance player development, to empower us to pick the correct players in the draft, all using traditional AI products. But of course, we're looking at the future. Where's everything going? What did we talk about for an hour today? Generative AI. So I got a couple slides here about how we're utilizing generative AI. If you want to see more, we have a session tomorrow where we go more in depth and not at 90 miles an hour. So could be kind of fun. Anyway, Genie, I don't know if you've seen this yet in the Databricks GA, allows kind of that natural language interface that generates SQL behind the scenes, allows for less technical stakeholders that may not knowing SQL too well to still be able to access the data easily and quickly. So in this case, we actually kind of went through, I told it what WOBA was and what I wanted to search for, and it came back and found kind of the top 10 players based off of XWOBA, which is a machine learning-based KPI that we use to evaluate hitting performance in baseball. And again, this is super useful. Like I said, we have a lot of back and forth with executives, non-technical stakeholders, coaches who say, hey, give me all the data of whatever this guy's fastballs were yesterday. And so then we have to go get it. And he's like, oh, you forgot to include this one metric that I wanted. So we go back, write another query, bring it back. So just trying to make that more efficient, democratize the data across our organization, if you will, regardless of that technical ability. And then finally, we do have a fan engagement Gen AI initiative that we have live during the games now. In the third inning, if you go look up at the scoreboard, you're going to see kind of this activation, which is very fun. Essentially, before the game or during the first inning, fans can send in photos of themselves and to whatever QR code we have floating around. And we usually have a prompt that's changing for like every game. So this one that I took, the photo cred me, by the way. So for this game, you're going to see prompt Lego minifigure. So we take kind of this photo, we run it through an image generation AI, and we get the kind of the pop out on the right here. So you're going to see that this actually worked really well. Sometimes they don't always work too well, but for this one, I was really proud of these two photos here. So other prompts we've done, like Pixar, baseball player on the moon, space cowboy. I don't know. They've been going crazy with the prompts on the fan engagement side, but this always gets huge laughs from the audience whenever they see themselves up there. And so, of course, how did all of this come together? What did this all result in? I'll pass it over to you. What did it result in, Oliver?
Victory.
Victory. Yeah. Whoa. 2023 World Series champs.
And we couldn't have done it without Databricks. Yeah.
So we're just getting started. Again, we have a much more in-depth talk tomorrow if you want to come out and see that for us. And hopefully we bring it back this year, right? Yeah? Go
Thanks so
team.
much, y'all.
Thanks for the time.
Cheers.
Thanks for the pleasure.
Thank you much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, clicker. Super excited for Andrew Brain, all the way from Sydney, Australia, to join us to talk about what he's doing with data at 7 West Media.
Thank you. Hear me okay? Oh, hear me okay, sorry. Thanks for hanging around. Made the trip from Sydney worth it. My name's Andrew Brain, and I'm the Director of Audience Intelligence and Growth at 7 West Media in Sydney, Australia, where I look after data enablement, which essentially is all the data in and out of our business, MarTech and the ad tech platforms. I'm going to talk to you today about the opportunity that AI and ML have within our business over the last 24 months, but we're real focused on, over the last 12 months with the awesome work we've been doing with Databricks. So as a digital business, we're moving from audience data reporting with hindsight to data-driven, forward-thinking insight. So over the next 15 minutes, I want to take you through what that means for us, but there's a little disclaimer I'm going to throw out. I'm not a data engineer, data scientist, nor architect, so this is not going to be a deep data deep dive. My background is in 24 years of commercializing traditional media into their digital form through magazines and newspapers, out-of-home, radio, and now TV. So who's 7 West Media? So we're a national media and entertainment business in Australia. We're a television broadcaster with main linear channel, which is Channel 7. We've got 4 multi-channels, and we've got a streaming platform called 7+, which I'm going to talk about today. We've also got digital on print assets, predominantly based out of Western Australia. And our revenue is broken down into 3. It's in TV, it's in digital, and it's in WAN, which is West Australian News. Digital now represents 49% of group earnings. So it's one of those things where 7+ comes into play, because 7+ is the most significant driver of that digital number. So today with 7+, we've done a pretty good job over the last few years of monetizing the platform and also driving an audience throughout the platform. But our competitive landscape is changing. The problem is that the SVOD models and services are finding it hard to monetize or even turn a profit. So they're now starting to release ad-funded tiers into their platform. So Netflix, Binge locally, Paramount, etc. So when we're talking about the 49% of earnings and that 7+ plays within that, one of the things we're doing at 7 is absolutely doubling down on 7+ and with our foot firmly on the accelerator. So that's across platform, that's across experience, engagement, audiences, and of course content. When it comes to content, we'll continue to acquire the best that there is to give our audiences what they want. The NBCU content partnership over the last 12 months has been a game changer for us. And that now represents 1,200 hours of our 20,000 hours of VOD cataloged within the platform. But we're also looking at what's new. And what's new coming for 7+ is live sport. So September this year, and October, and later on in March 25, we will have cricket through the summer, and we'll have AFL through the winter, which will be the first time that these 2 sports have been available to stream for free So you get that on 7 Plus. So you get it with no paywall, no subscription, and everyone can actually just enjoy their sport. So when we're talking about AI, this is where sort of really we put it into our business first of all, and this was about 2 years ago. And so when we're talking about the AVOD landscape is changing, we need to be as good or if not better than those global powerhouses. So when it comes to platform and user experience, this is where the AI was embedded first of all. It's in the heart of our entire user experience across 7 Plus, and it's powering the personalization engine that we actually rolled out with AWS a couple of years ago. This moves 7 Plus from being a one product for all to essentially being a product for yourself as an individual. If you think of it like this, we got 13.7 million registered users on 7 Plus. So now essentially we have 13.7 million different versions of 7 Plus, which is actually unique to that particular profile. We've rolled out dynamic shelf ordering, which is driven around about a 50% increase in minute consumption. And we've also put a dynamic user interface as well, which has actually increased audience engagement by about 3x since we've rolled that out. So this brings us to our exciting work that we're doing with our friends at Databricks. We are on the journey with Databricks, like from a data intelligence platform, where we've rolled out Unity Catalog, Delta Lake, Spark, and ML Flow. This is releasing AI and ML-driven insights across our business. So across content acquisition, programming, marketing, sales, and of course, good old finance as well. So our focus is really understanding how can we democratize our data across our business, really focusing on our VOD, but also our fast assets as well. So this is a good old maturity curve. We've all seen these before, and this is one I actually nicked from Databricks, so thanks, guys, for the plagiarism there. In the red box, this represents where we were. Essentially was really well-structured, clean data that was really used for reporting on the output of what happened yesterday. And that report we would get, and then we would understand if yesterday was a good day from an audience perspective, but also from a revenue perspective. Also in that box is around ad hoc queries and data exploration. So from a commercial opportunity for us to create audience segments and then monetize those through activation on platforms, that was living in the platform. But we want to get to the other side of that, and that's the work that we've been doing with Databricks. In short, what we want to understand is what will happen from our audiences and what they're watching. How should we respond, and how can we automate the decisions? How can we actually start to predict what our audiences are going to be watching over the next 7 to 28 days? We have to, as I said, we have to democratize data across the business, and that's what we've been doing. So in red are the challenges, and in blue was the work that we had to do. And this is obviously where Databricks has come in. Just want to scroll down this one a sec. So I said we want to increase all the metrics across 7 Plus. So if I think about what the use cases look like when we democratize, and this is in dashboards, but also when thinking about LLMs and Genie moving forward. If you're thinking about marketing teams, they should have insights on the shows that have been promoted, or that haven't been promoted, but are actually connecting with high-value audiences. For a sales team, it's about how do we actually give our sales team an understanding of the audiences, matched against the different data partners that we see within our business, but how do we give them a forecast and a focus on what does the inventory look like when you actually connect it against the content and also the data against those audiences. For the finance teams, all finance teams love better forecasting, and this will obviously give them an opportunity to do that when we actually look at audience against revenue. And then for the good old content team, this is giving the content team a real understanding of the content that we should be acquiring to bring into our platform. When we can actually look at what that content window will look like from a watching perspective, viewing perspective, and then we actually attribute revenue against that, then that informs content of, one, are we paying the right amount of money for the content? And two, can we afford it? And not the case of we can't afford it, but what's the long tail opportunity for us to make sure that what we're actually trying to bring to the platform is monetizable. So we've made some changes to our architecture at 7. We run on AWS. The changes come sort of threefold. One was around governance, and that's where we rolled out Unity Catalog, which allows us to have a real end-to-end governance from multiple streaming sources, bronze to gold medallion architecture, as well as over multiple models that we're using to forecast and track audiences. With performance, we've rolled out Delta and Spark, and after moving to Delta from traditional Parquet formats, we are seeing amazing out-of-the-box improvements of processing speeds. We have campaign reports that previously took 2 days to run. We now run those in 2 hours. It's awesome. And that's before any sort of fine-grained optimizations as well. And then from a productivity perspective, Databricks IQ, Lakehouse, and we've recently just gone serverless. With a relatively small team at 7, from a data engineering perspective, the Lakehouse paradigm, the cost-effective serverless SQL, and AI tools has been a game changer to improve productivity across the team. Just about the performance piece, one of my engineers came up to us a couple of weeks back and said, now he's moving and he's working within the Databricks space, he feels like he's been given the keys to the Ferrari. So it's a really big plus, really sort of moving things forward for us. Oh, sorry, just went back. So this is where I'm sort of getting into the really interesting stuff that we've been doing. This was around, okay, so if we want to understand what audiences are going to be watching and not always just reporting on what happened yesterday, but we can have a focus on it and an understanding of what audiences will be watching. This is where we actually put in our first pilot, which was a 7-day rolling prediction analysis on what people would be watching. So off the back of that, we use currency data, which was VOZ, which is VPN data in Australia. We asked for the predictions to come back from the amount of minutes that are going to be consumed, the total audiences that are going to come back. But I also want those audiences broken down between demographics as well. So you can actually get a forecast over the next 7 days and broken down into those key metrics. And why did I want to do that? Because if I was to go to content and the programming team and say, can you give me an understanding what the audiences will look like over the next 7 days, they would just give you that finger in the air approach. Or if anything, they'd be relying on gut feel or years of TV experience to sort of come up with some sort of percentage number. It's not good enough, so we need to be able to predict and understand what that outcome is. So we give our data team and the professional services team of Databricks a pass mark of 70% of accuracy around total audience over that 7 days. They ran the model for about 6 weeks. They actually came back with a pass mark of 91%. That's huge. Like when we actually took that to our executives and they said we can now understand what our audiences are going to be from a value perspective, a volume, and also what they're going to be watching, you can understand that that just flew through our business. And the leaning in around what data we can now expose on our business is actually driving our business forward. But that clear 7-day opportunity, it's fueling all the future initiatives through the roadmap. So 7 days was great, but 7 days is a very short window, especially in the world of media, and obviously campaigns. There's not many campaigns that only run for 7 days. We wanted to take this and put, okay, so what's that from that pilot perspective? If we wanted to run that over 28 days, 28 days starts to work on marketing use cases or campaign windows for advertisers and brands. The guys pushed the envelope again and ran the numbers, but we actually got to a pass mark over 28 days of 94%. So you can probably understand when we take this to market and we go and show advertisers and media agencies and brand managers about what forecasts, and we can give an understanding of what that audience will look like over that period, it makes them incredibly excited, but also gives them confidence to buy with us because we can now understand those audiences over that 7-day period. So it's given us that opportunity to see, what the future has in store for us. But we can actually then make a reaction, or we can around the decisions about how we actually move forward. So if I'm looking at an audience which is very, very small, and we need to grow that because obviously that's from a advertiser's perspective, they want young people, and we need to bring more young people to the platform. It's how do we then go for the marketing team, like what does that actually look like? What do the variables look like? And how do we then go and find those audiences and bring them back into the platforms? And this is where we really sort of kicked off with, with our lapsed audiences. Yeah, so this is a game changer for us again internally because so we've got all of these audiences, but as like all streaming platforms, all those audiences are not always active throughout the month or 6 months or a year, whatever it would be. So we're implementing machine learning models to segment 7+ users that taps not into a user's viewing habit, but other factors like clickstream data. If they're coming to the platform and they're not actually watching anything, they're just browsing around. How do we actually take that data back in and understand that against profiles around re-engagement for lapsed users? But we're also pulling in real-world attributes such as the weather, or are there children in the house, or is there a long weekend coming up? All has a different understanding around what that looks like to bring audiences back. The segmentation we're rolling out, it really is sophisticated, it's dynamic, and it's constantly evolving. We're forecasting, I'll just give you some numbers, we're forecasting with this project bring 10% of lapsed audiences back into the platform, essentially wake them up and bring them back into the platform. If we can bring them back into an active state, it's worth essentially tens of millions of dollars for 7+. What it also does, it saves our marketing funds on constantly trying to go out and acquire new audiences when we've actually got audiences, just how do we wake them up and bring them back to the platform. We've also got an in-the-week dynamic engagement strategy, again, which is pretty cool. So when we know we can see 28 days in advance, what we can also see is by day and by hour a day, what will be the most watched VOD show on the platform. So what does that look like? So if you're let's say you're a 911 or a rookie, I'll use US shows. So if that's your jam and you want to binge those shows, we would know what time of day that would be most popular. So what does that mean for us? It means our marketing team can actually start to use that data to bring audiences back or connect with audiences who are active to come in for that hour because there's people that we know watch it and these people look just like them. So how should we actually market to them and bring them back in? How do we have hour by hour show on the homepage of 7+ in-app? Or how do we actually use outbound comms, which would be email or push, to actually drive engagement back into that particular hour for those shows? I guess, so what's next for us? We've got a pretty jam-packed roadmap for probably the next 24 months. Some things will work, some things won't work. We'll fail and we'll fail fast. But this is one that we're actually working through this right now. So if there's anybody in the industry and they've nailed this, please let me know. But this is something that we're really focusing on. And this is really around ad load and ad load experiences and engagement. I'll just sort of set this up. So with Paul, Paul's average session duration is 2 hours and 20 minutes. So why should he get the same ad load experience as Sam, who is only an hour and 20 minutes? With Paul, we know he's going to stay longer. So should we actually stretch out his ad pod breaks around his engagement? Or because we know he's going to be longer with us on the platform, do we actually pull ads out of the pod? So do we reward him for his longevity with actually seeing less ads? And then there's Jane. Jane's only spending 20 minutes with us. So that's one of the things we need to look at. So like, what's going on with Jane? Are ads a detractor for Jane? Ads are a detractor for everybody, let's be honest. But our ads are a detractor. Well, that's the thing we need to test. So do we give her an ad experience, which is an ad holiday when she comes to the platform? Do we do that and do we test that until she gets to a certain recency, frequency, and engagement metric? And then once she goes over a certain time or metric, then do we start introducing ads to her? The more that we can increase her experience with us, the more likely she's going to come back and watch and watch again. So that's our Databricks journey. I hope you found it of interest. Before I hand back, I would like to say thank you to a few people. And these are the guys back in Sydney, so I know there's a camera over there, so I will pull them out, which is my data team, which is Matthew, Rath, Sai, Ash, and Rich. But also, I think our local representation of Databricks as well, which is Adam Beavis, Phil Makitic, and on Otto Lee. The collaboration with these guys over the last 12 months has been absolutely first class, and like we couldn't have done it without those guys. So that's what we're trying to do from a 7 West perspective. We're trying to own our outcomes. So if we can actually see what's going to happen, how do we actually make some changes so we can actually change what those outcomes would be? That's me. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Brian.
So much.
Good on you, mate.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. You've all made it through our CME session. Brian's going to help me with the getting the 3 remaining slides up. But I stand between you and industry happy hour. We hope that you join us. Say hello at the industry happy hour. It's not only for communications, media, and entertainment, but also all the industries. So we learned today a lot about what it takes to deliver artificial intelligence, whether it's generative AI, whether it's machine learning, whether it's predictive analytics, and so forth. And what it all comes down to is artificial intelligence is only as good as the data that you feed into it. And it requires a sophisticated next generation platform for managing that data. And that's why you're all here, that's why I'm here, and that's what Databricks offers. If you're wondering, hey, how do I get started? How do I make this happen really quickly? It's not hard with Databricks. We have solution accelerators that are pre-made and ready to go for you to be able to work with. We encourage you to leverage Databricks professional services, as well as a very robust ecosystem of partners from a professional services perspective to get going quickly. And then one of the big themes that came out during our session today was that there's a huge opportunity for learning and training and upskilling your teams. There's amazing training that the team has developed, and we encourage you to take advantage of that. So to close it out, we've heard everything about protecting your intellectual property. We're moving now at a faster pace of innovation than I think any of us have ever really experienced. And we have an opportunity to maximize the potential of the data that all of our organizations generate. And so super excited to be part of you, part of this journey with you, and looking forward to meeting you all shortly. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you to all the presenters.